Thanks, Liz. Can everyone hear me? I'm not used to all this stuff, and I feel very far away from you. So what do you think happens when you get a nice, cheerful phone call from a colleague who says, we want you to come back and do your presentation again, and this time we're putting you in the big room, especially when your presentation is about introversion. So right off the bat, I'll tell you that I would much prefer having coffee with all of you and having a chat rather than this, but we'll try to make it as intimate as possible. So, how many of you, right now, before I say anything, would self-identify as an introvert? Wow, okay. Very interesting fact is that about a little more than 50% of the workforce self-identifies as introverts, and 96% of senior leaders identify as extroverts. So that is an interesting combination of temperaments. When we talk about diversity, a lot of times we focus on the things that are very obvious. But diversity in temperament and personality and style is extremely important, and sometimes you can't see it right away. So I'm here kind of to carry the flag and speak on behalf of all those quiet people with good ideas that sometimes don't get listened to. So, my career has been spent helping groups and individuals on their journeys of professional development and self-development. So I've heard a lot of stories from people about their successes, about their setbacks. And so what I thought, since we don't have a lot of time to spend together, is I would present this information in the context of one of my stories. I tend to be on the receiving end of the story. Now I'd like to be on the giving end of the story. And this is the story of a year in my professional life that I really will never forget. Does anybody have a defining moment in their career that you could? I see a lot of heads nodding. Okay, all right. So here's the deal, and some dates you never forget. It was, excuse me, I'm out of breath already. It was July 12th, 1989, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's how much this is burned into my brain. I had worked myself up in this private corporation from a management trainee to the first female and the youngest assistant vice president within 10 years. I thought I was moving along very nicely. I had a good team working for me. People were productive, they were happy, didn't take much criticism. And every year in this organization, a succession planning committee got together. And they called this exercise that they went through futuring. Okay? So I didn't think much about it because every year, pretty much, I wound up on the succession plan somewhere, and it was all good. And after this meeting, I got called into my boss's office. And to make a very long story and long conversation short, he told me that the futuring committee had decided I had no future at that organization. I heard things like, too quiet, don't make decisions fast enough, you don't speak up at meetings, you're too nice. None of these things, by the way, are concrete, performance, elements of your work performance. I was kind of in shock. What they told me was that it was a Wednesday, besides being 2 p.m., told me to go home for the rest of the week, come back on Monday, and my choices were I could resign or I could take another job off the track that I was on. I honestly, it was. I can't even just describe to you the feeling. I went through being angry, being depressed. Thankfully, I had a very good friend and colleague who was a workplace psychologist, and I called her, and I said, I don't know what to do. I need some advice. That started a year of me working with her to come up with a strategy to get my career back on the track that I wanted it to be on. And so what do you think we found out? We found out there was nothing really wrong with me. But after some heavy-duty testing, it turns out that I fall into the category of introverted temperament. And I am an extreme, by the way. It's a continuum, okay? It's not either or. It is a continuum of behavior. I happen to be an extreme. And the good stuff, or I wouldn't even label it as good or bad, but some of the characteristics of an introverted temperament like mine is it is associated a lot with creativity and innovation. All right, we tend to be deep thinkers. We tend to think before we speak, hence, you're not jumping in there enough. How many of you have been at meetings where you're like, trying to get a word in edgewise? Or where you say to yourself, I just said that. And nobody heard me, but they heard this person who just repeated what I just said. A major piece of this, if you really want to make a determination as to whether you're a true introvert or not, is to think to yourself, how do you generate energy? How do you recharge your batteries? Do you feel energetic and get energy from being around a lot of people and hustle and bustle and all of that, which there's nothing wrong with that. But is that where you get your energy? Or do you need downtime? Do you get your energy back by sitting and reflecting and having some quiet time? I will tell you, I didn't go to the first session of the day because I needed to be by myself. Before I do something like this, I have to be alone. When we're done, it would be great if later on during the networking, we talk with 3 or 4 people and a cup of tea. That's how I will recharge. But there are assumptions that are made that are detrimental to recognizing the true value of having this perspective and this approach to work and life. Look at these assumptions. I think I heard every single one of these assumptions applied to me at some point during that, what I refer to as the year of hell. I mean, look at them. People have biases. They look at you, they listen to you, and they start making assumptions. Well, here are the realities. Introverts like people. We don't want to be alone in a cave somewhere. Look at all of this. This is all my discovery through working with this psychologist. So everything in this presentation is from my notes and the conversations that I had over that year that I actually use with clients of my own, and they really seem to resonate with it. Look, I mean, do you see anything so terrible there? That's all good stuff. The 2 things, though, that are most important if you are, of this temperament type is easily overstimulated and can be hard to get to know. Because those are 2 things where you can learn skills and strategies to overcome that and to manage that. Okay? All right. Very good. So what happens when you're an introvert in a workplace that has a strong preference for extroversion, where you are surrounded, okay, by people who approach their work differently or are making assumptions about folks who are different from them? You may find that you're reluctant to speak up at meetings. You're very humble about your accomplishments, okay? People think you are slower in terms of your pace. Your ideas may be overlooked, and you may be passed over for opportunities. Now, something interesting about women in the workplace is that, as I said, my temperament is truly introverted. But there are women who perhaps are not truly personality-wise introverted, but adopt those types of behaviors because of the pressure that they feel in their work environment. so they become quieter, they become more reluctant to speak up. There's kind of an intimidation factor. So that, that's also something to think about. Another interesting thing is that actually there are slightly more male introverts than female. But there is evidence to suggest that when a male introvert behaves as they behave, they are still perceived in a more positive light. So a male introvert doesn't say something at the meeting. What is the assumption? Well, there's just nothing to say. There's nothing important enough for me to comment on. But when a female introvert is quiet at a meeting, she doesn't have anything worthwhile to say. Bill Gates is an introvert. Warren Buffett is an introvert. Could you imagine somebody saying to them, sorry, you got no future? Okay. On the other hand, Rosa Parks is an introvert. Eleanor Roosevelt is an introvert. Oprah Winfrey is an introvert. Okay. So, anybody change their mind yet about where you fall on the continuum? Did anyone think they were an introvert and now they've changed their mind? Okay. Did anybody think they weren't and now have changed their mind? No, okay, we're still good. We're still the majority here. Okay. So what are you supposed to do? And that was my question to my friend and colleague. What am I supposed to do? This is who I am. And it has been labeled in some ways as deficient. Okay, so what do I do? So we came up with this model that's just easy to remember. If you don't remember anything that's on any of these slides, remember these three words: care, connect, and communicate. Okay, you have to work from the inside out. Leadership is about who you are. Okay, and one of the challenges that we have if we have a more introverted temperament is that we have this very rich inner life. We're thinking and we're pondering and coming up with all sorts of creative ideas, and sometimes we forget that nobody knows what's going on in here if you don't actually say something. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to talk about caring for yourself. So when I say care in the 3 C's, I'm talking about self-care. Okay? And really thinking about yourself in the situation or the context that you find yourself in. What's going well? When do you start to feel pain? Under what circumstances do you start to get that uncomfortable feeling? All right. How can you get information on your strengths and weaknesses? I had the great good fortune of working with this woman who was an excellent coach and gave me all sorts of different ways, different assessments, and just conversations so that I would have a clear picture of what I thought my strengths and weaknesses were. Who can help you get past, kind of help you to stretch and get out of your comfort zone? Who do you trust to be honest with you? If you could make one change tomorrow, after just hearing 10 minutes of this, what would it be? All right? Is anybody already thinking about, maybe there's one thing I could do differently? And we're going to work on this in a little while. Organizations have mission, vision, and value statements. Why not you? Okay, why don't we create a personal statement that you can evaluate your situation against so you can decide what your next move is going to be? Okay. Caring for yourself also includes not beating yourself up. Okay, how many of you will first go to, oh, it must be me, I'm wrong, they know so much more than I do. Okay. Here's a good quote from Barbara DeAngelis. When you base your confidence on who you are instead of what you accomplish, you have created something that no one or no circumstance can ever take away from you. So don't immediately go to that place that says, it must be me. You know what? Most of the time, I'm going to almost guarantee it's not you. It is not you. Okay? Caring for yourself, mind, body, and spirit. adopt a learning mode. And this actually comes kind of easily to introverts because we love to read and think and share information. We like close relationships. We have to find some type of purpose and meaning in what we do, or why do it. Like I said, I'm a very extreme introvert, so for me, if I can't find some kind of deeper meaning in what I'm doing, even if it's something very ordinary, I really don't feel motivated to do it. I really don't. It's got to matter. It's got to matter. And I've had people say to me, oh, you know, so just make it unimportant. It doesn't matter. I can't help it. It has to matter. Okay. Connecting in a different way. Like I said, I'm sharing the story about myself. You know, I tend to keep to myself, so I'm outside there, and, you know, I said, wave to Pat. And then I sat there and I read my notes, and I was in my mind saying, don't anybody come over and say hello, please. Don't have anybody come over and say hello. I got to do this. And then if we were in a different venue, what I probably would have done was come early and walk around and say something to each one of you. Because that has a calming effect. And that is what I call kind of bringing the room in. So we've got a big room here. I don't generally like big rooms. I like bringing the room in. So if I can't do it, you know, by actually making the room smaller, I can make it feel smaller by connecting, you know, with all of you folks, you know, that took time out of your day to come here. So think about that too when you go to meet. Go a little bit early. Chat up some of the people there. You know, then they know something about you. You've opened yourself up so you don't seem like that quiet, you know, kind of closed off person, you know, sitting as far away from the front of the room as possible. You are a person. You have become, you know, you have become a colleague. All right? They know something about you. You know something about them. One of the things that is so wonderful about an introverted temperament is this ability to really, really listen to people and sincerely show interest in what they're saying. But you can't do that if you haven't taken a step, you know, to kind of open the door of the relationship first. All right? I mean, I have had other people, you know, that I work with, like I said, who I coach through these things say, but it's got to be 50-50. I'm so tired of reaching out 80%. And honestly, my answer to that is, oh, go ahead. You know, I know it can be tiring. I know you can get frustrated, but it is so worth it. So, you know, kind of summon up the courage and reach out. And then you find over time that your need to reach out that far actually gets smaller. Think of, over the last year, think of all the women who are finding their voices and starting to speak up and starting to say, no, I will not tolerate this any longer. Okay? That courage. You know, I'm sure there are many whose knees were knocking while they were saying it. Many who are of a quieter temperament, like many of us are, who didn't, you know, would rather not speak up. But when you care, when you have a passion, when you care about fairness, when you care about, you know, purpose and meaning, you will. You will feel the fear, like they say, and do it anyway. Okay. So we all talk about communication, but this is a specific type of communication. I mean, how many of you, you know, when you're getting ready to go to a meeting or something, do you wing it? No, I see the shit. No. You know, it's because you have to be on your game. If you're going to be a little quieter than everybody else, you have to be on your game. One thing I noticed when I've been treated badly because of being quieter, that after a while, if I just reminded myself I'm a competent person and wherever I go, I demonstrate that competence, I have found that I start to win people over. So be prepared. Know that you're good at what you do, but don't wing it. Don't wing it unless you absolutely have to. I always anticipate questions in advance. I really don't like to be on the spot. You know, and I have a tendency to not breathe See, I'm doing very well today. Normally, I would be out of breath by now and thinking I'm a little dizzy because I got to get all of this out. I don't know how it happened, but it must have been the walking up and down here and saying, please, nobody talk to me. That helped. But seriously, it is things that are scary, things that are stressful can cause you to do that, to hold your breath a little. Okay, and what introverts will tend to do is take the breath in and forget to let it out again. And then you wonder why you're feeling a little dizzy. Okay. Some other tips and strategies. Face-to-face is preferable to email. I know you want to email. And why do we want to email? Because then if we have to say something uncomfortable, we don't have to deal with that immediate feedback. But this is stretching beyond the comfort zone. Okay, this is building relationships. Just think of it as building and building, building relationships one at a time. Instead of, I have to embrace this whole group of people. Just say, I'm working on this one at a time. Say what's on your mind. Okay, I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, but you never told me that. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure that I did. I didn't know. I was talking to myself. All right, so get it out. Say to yourself, I'm going to contribute at least one thing at every meeting that I'm in. That's a trick that worked for me. Let me contribute at least one thing. I don't have to talk through the whole thing, but let me say something. It's all about dispelling the myths and the assumptions, and starting to let people know who you are. Assertive language and word choices. How many of you say things like, if you don't mind, would you please do this for me? When you really mean as a leader or a manager, I need you to do this by 2 o'clock today. If you don't mind, could you do me a favor? Okay. I'm not sure if, this is correct, but this is what I've heard. That's kind of wishy-washy. Non-assertive language only reinforces the bias around having this temperament. Okay? And paying attention to how you present yourself, both verbally and non-verbally. Okay? You have presence. You don't want to be all like this. Make yourself small. Don't make yourself small. I will tell you a story that happened before the year of hell that I still remember and I still tell people because it's actually pretty funny. My staff had a running joke about something that they called the Marilyn face. And I overheard them making fun of me one day. Be careful, you're going to get the Marilyn face. And so I asked someone, who I knew would tell me the truth, what is this about? And what she said was, well, you look mad a lot. Like if we come into your office and we want to ask you a question, you look up, and apparently it was like, something like that. And it was turning people off. They didn't want to, they would come in. I was wondering why everybody would be like, can I just see you for just a minute? And it's just because I have really good power, I can concentrate really well. I'm very focused. If I'm working on something, I'm like really into it. So looking up was more it's not I'm mad at you, it's more the surprise of being interrupted. Because I can concentrate with kind of chaos going on around me. So anyway, but I didn't realize that just that little thing was kind of motivating my staff to change their behavior and in not a good way. In a negative way, So after that, we actually made a joke of it, and all's well that ends well. But I really had no idea that I was using that facial expression and that it was having such an impact. You would think, well, but you do it enough, and people start reacting. Okay, so does anybody have a face like that? Like if you get kind of interrupted or somebody says to you, what's the matter? And you're like, nothing. And you don't realize that your face is saying something else. Okay. Another strategy that can be very helpful to do this relationship building is remember that if you make a promise or a commitment, keep it. Okay? Depending on the situation, sometimes I will summarize a conversation if it's work-related, if it's, if there are commitments involved. Again, the purpose of it is to keep the relationship going and make sure everybody heard the same thing, to reach out and kind of initiate contact rather than waiting for people to come to you. And here's a big one that it may not be necessary for everybody, but again, this is the result of my year of discovery and things that I needed to do differently. And this one I have to remind myself of all the time. Put your name on everything you personally produce. See, I'm the type of business that gives advice, and it comes kind of easy to me. So sometimes I don't realize that I'm giving advice that people should pay for. It feels like conversation, but it's not. It's work. And I have to remind myself of this up to this very day. I will tell you, a few months ago, I let somebody pick my brain for about 3 hours, and then a little while later discovered they had taken all of what I said and took credit for it, put it into a piece of work and took the credit for it. And I kicked myself. Now, I'm supposed to know better. I'm telling you I'm supposed to know better. But I can't help it. Sometimes I fall into that overly helpful mode. So it really is an important and very specific aspect of communicating. How many of you do work where, you are either giving advice or you're writing, so sharing your writing, or anything like that? Some of you, yeah. Don't give away your expertise. It's valuable. It's worth something. It's worth something. Okay. So how do we win over all of these extroverted 96% of senior leaders? Okay. Well, maybe winning over, maybe I should change that, because I don't think you should really have to win people over. I think there should be mutual respect. And I think there needs to be some effort made to recognizing the value of the more introverted temperament and getting more of us into those senior leadership roles. But the reality is we still have to go to work every day, don't we? So while that's happening, or until we get to a better place, these are the strategies that worked for me and have worked for many other people that I have helped over the years, is let your manager know what you're interested in. So if you're saying to yourself, how come I never get to do X? Maybe they don't know that you want to, or that you have an interest or an expertise. Showing interest in the needs of the other person, as much as you think that they, ought to be able to meeting you more halfway. Look at all these words. They're all active, right? They're all active instead of passive. Initiate, volunteer, get to the point. Not everybody, look, I have some friends where we love to sit around and just ruminate and talk about all sorts of things, and we talk in circles, and it doesn't matter, and it's all very great. But that doesn't work for everybody. So sometimes you need to remind yourself, I'm with a group of people who do not enjoy this circular conversation, and why are we here, and let's get to the point. Okay? Accepting criticism calmly is hard for anybody. I thought my head was going to explode when they told me, sorry, we're taking your job away from you. All right. So that was hard to accept calmly. I think it looked like I accepted it calmly because I didn't know what to do or what to say. But I will tell you what happened when we get to the end here. And that falls along the lines of the follow-up questions. And don't minimize, how many of you are dismissive of compliments that come your way? Oh, it was nothing. Oh, it was easy. Oh, really, somebody helped me. Oh, it's just what I do. Stop that, please. Really, if you don't remember anything else that I said today, I want you all, when someone pays you a compliment, to say, thank you. Yes, indeed. On the Oscars, when Allison Janney won her Oscar, I mean, she was kidding, but what was does anybody remember the first thing she said when she got up there? She said, I did it all myself, with a big smile. Because everybody up to that point had gone on and on and on with 100 different people they were thanking. She walked up there, she took it, and she said, good evening. I did it all myself. So I want you to think about that in your head. You might not say that, but yeah, I did it all myself. Thank you very much. We're not going to be dismissive. Because then it makes people think, well, maybe you're not, all right, well, maybe it wasn't so good. Or maybe anybody could have done it. You take your own specialness right out when you're dismissive of that sort of thing. Okay. So, I can't see. Can somebody tell me what time it is? Because I can't see the clock. Okay, thanks. How much time?
27, and when it's 10:35, you're going to get back.
Okay. Well, actually, we're moving along rather swiftly, so maybe we'll have some time for some kind of chit-chat. So what happened? All right. Well, first, let me leave you with a couple of quotes here. Peter Drucker is considered to be like the godfather of leadership development. All right. So if you want to read some good stuff on leadership, look up Peter Drucker. And Susan Cain wrote a wonderful book. Again, I would highly recommend it, called Quiet. Have any of you read Quiet? Yeah. Excellent book. So here's what Peter Drucker says. The one and only personality trait the effective leaders I have encountered have in common was something they didn't have. They had little or no charisma and little use either for the term or what it signifies. So really, truly effective leaders that we can respect are not all smoke and mirrors. They're not all a big show. They are genuine, authentic people. As Susan Cain says, authenticity over showmanship. The theme of the conference today, we're talking about life, health, and leadership. It is simply not physically or mentally healthy to work against your own nature. You can learn skills, which is what I had to do. I had to learn some skills because we have to find a way to operate in this world, so we learn skills that help us navigate. But when I tried to be really different, when I tried to be what might be associated with an extrovert, very outgoing, talking a lot, it was so inauthentic. It was painful for me, it was painful for everybody around me. So you have to be true to yourself to be truly healthy. But remind yourself that you are capable of learning skills that broaden you, right? So appreciate and recognize the core. This is what you have, right? And you have a lot to offer with that core. But you can increase your scope. You can make bigger and wider circles around you by learning new strategies and learning new skills. And then at the end of the day, go home, put on your fuzzy slippers, and have the tea to recharge your battery. Okay? All right, so everybody has a handout in front of them. Does anybody not have one? Okay, Liz will run around. Okay. So a characteristic of introverts is that they do thrive on meaning and purpose. Okay? And this is a great exercise. This exercise my friend and colleague did with me to help me make a decision about what to do next. Okay? When the year was up that they gave me, make the decision on what to do for the year and then what to do when the year was up. You know how everybody has a resume, right? Okay. You know that top part where it says objective? And what's in there? Over X number of years doing this and that and the other thing, nice, either an objective or a summary of what your skills are. What if you sat down, like I did, and forced yourself to answer these questions quietly, sit and answer these questions, write them down, turn it into a personal statement, and do this little trick with yourself. What if you substituted that objective or summary on your resume with this personal statement that reflects some or all of these questions? What's important to you? What's your passion? What gives you energy? What do you want to contribute? What do you want to accomplish in the next 3 years? How can you make that happen? Who do you want with you on the journey? And what guiding principles will you have? What's your own personal kind of list of values, all right, that influence your decision making? So what if you created that statement, hypothetically took the summary off your resume, put that statement on there, and evaluated your current situation against that statement? Okay. There's a few things that you could do. You could say, well, it's not exactly, my situation isn't exactly supportive of this statement, but maybe there's something I can do, locally to change that. You could say, oh, wow, this doesn't support me at all, and I'm just going to stay here and be miserable. Or you could make some kind of a decision to change it drastically. So it's kind of, you really only have 3 choices. Either you do something to try to modify where you're at, don't do anything to modify it and just be unhappy, or do something, to change it. I always say that to people when they tell me they hate their job. It's like, those are the only 3 choices you have. Really? Okay. And what if you evaluated everything that's gone on in your past against that statement and say to yourself, is there a pattern here? Have I been accepting positions along my career path that support, really who I am? Or have I been, forced to modify along the way? Thank you. So it was interesting. It was a really interesting exercise. So this is what happened related to this. Here's what I did. I came back on Monday, and I was feeling a little fragile. My confidence was shaken. I said, all right, I'll take the demotion, because I didn't think I could deal with more stress and change. I'll take it. And of course, I was working with my friend, the workplace psychologist, for we had planned on just working together so that I could get myself in a better situation. So I told them I would take it. And I did the job for a year. And at the end of the year, they came to me and they said, wow, you've done really well. We hope this year has been character building for you. And we'd like to give you your old job back. Well, sort of yay. So what do you think I did? How many of you think I took the old job back? Nobody. Yes, I didn't say what I was thinking. Didn't say what I was thinking. I did not take, I said thank you, but no thanks. And that's how Stony Brook got me. So, but it took a lot. It was painful. There was a lot of questioning. I'm sure you've had experiences like this. You question yourself. You're not sure. Some of that stuff goes through your head of, well, I got to pay my bills, so like any job is a good job. Sometimes it depends on your stage in life. Not everybody can just pick up and go. But I had been kind of working on this for the whole year and planning the pros and cons of different, approaches. It felt so good to smile and say, no, thank you. I'm taking my much better character and going someplace else. So, here's some wisdom from the Notsofamous. So I'm not Peter Drucker, I'm not Susan Cain. But this is something that I have to remind myself of all the time. Especially, I'm sure you are all extremely competent women. All right, so you can do a lot, even under difficult circumstances. But I've had to remind myself of this over and over again. Just because you can do something, you have the ability to do it, doesn't mean you necessarily want to do it or should be doing it. And that's the place I was at when they offered me the job back. I knew I could do it. All right? But for the first time in my career, I actually took a stand and said, but I don't want to. It's not healthy for me, and I should be doing something else. Okay? And another quote that bounces through my head all the time when I think about authenticity, and whenever I feel like maybe I'm getting a little away from my authentic self, you find wisdom in all different places, from all different people that you've encountered in your life. And I always remember this. Since I was quiet, my mother sent me to ballet school because I could express myself without talking. And my ballet teacher, 1968, kept saying, Marilyn, stop trying to be short. As you can see, I am not short. And when I was 10, I was not short. And I used to try to be kind of like all the other girls, because they were like the cute, petite, ballet dancers. And she would yell at me all the time, stop trying to be short. So that's kind of my little personal mantra for, okay, you're getting away from, your authentic self. I could take short out of there and put any other number of words in. But when I say to myself, stop trying to be short, it's a reminder, that I'm not being true to myself. And while we have that practical, all of us have it, the practical responsibility to take care of ourselves, our families, pay our bills, all of that good stuff. You can't always have an ideal situation all the time. Nobody does. But you can still be true to yourself and not let anyone take away from you what you know to be your true value. All right? That's what I want you to promise, that no matter what happens to you, maybe you have to take a job you don't like for a while because of circumstances, still protect your own value. All right? So I hope my year of hell helped you to kind of really focus in on the challenges that people have when their temperament is a little bit different from the majority. And I hope you can take some of this back with you and kind of make a promise to yourself that, starting when you walk out the door here, you will always remind yourself of your true value. So thank you. Thank you for coming.